Now, the outer covering of birds is, of course, feathers. And so if we take a look at this hawk here, most of what we're seeing are what are called contour feathers. And most of those contour feathers are going to look like this. And so that is the main feather where the color is. But there are some specialized ones like tail feathers here. And so tail feathers are generally more symmetrical. So if we look at a typical feather, what we're going to see is that there's a central part here called the rachis. And radiating out from there are the veins. And those veins have barbs, which are the little thin parts here. You can actually see some of them separated there. And those are attached by little Velcro-like things called barbules, which we can't see here. And they all come down and attach into the body via a calamus. So this is just the extension of the rachis that goes into the body. But anyway, if we look at these tail feathers, the rachis is pretty much in the middle. Now, they can be a little bit asymmetrical, but they're usually not as asymmetrical as flight feathers. So here we have some flight feathers, and we can see that one edge of the feather is much smaller than the other edge of the feather. You can really see it on that one. And as we'll talk about in lecture, that's for the feathers rotating. Here's another bird, and we can see here, again, these are tail feathers because they're relatively symmetrical. And this is a flight feather because it's very asymmetrical. The other type of feather out there is this thing. This is called a semi-plume, and they often have some color on the end of them, but have a downy base to them. And they're not quite as organized as a typical contour feather is, so they don't have interlocking barbs and barbules. You still have the barbs, but not the barbules. And then this is down, and so there's a ton of downy feathers sitting right there, and they are for insulation. If we go back to our bird here, take a close up at his head there, what we see are these basically bristles sticking out from the bottom of the chin. There's a few on top of the head as well. And these are basically just the rachis of the feather, and these are called rictal bristles, and they're often for helping to make sure that food gets into the mouth. They often kind of work like vibrissae or whiskers in mammals. And then finally we have phyloplumes, and they're not as common. These are the tail feathers of a peacock, and they're a really specialized phyloplume. You can see a really long rachis there with a colorful bit at the end. And so phyloplumes are generally used as displays, typically found in the males. So those are the feathers and their parts.